contractor is going to go first, then Mike will document. So I'll give you guys a snapshot of my LEED commercial experience. And so I work for CalCon, and we're based out of Denver, and I was lucky enough to have the only branch here in Steamboat. So I focus here in Steamboat. We work in Winter Park and Vale and Glenwood, but try to stay in Steamboat. At CalCon, we've got about 8 LEED projects under our belt. Most notably in this area, Routt Charter, which we got a LEED Platinum on. Typically, we see LEED projects as either government funded or there's a grant requirement to get LEED certified to get your payment, or a large company. We did a $90 million data center for FedEx. So it's generally bigger organizations trying to set an example. But it seems that most of our smaller private projects, folks are going LEED intent, or there's at least that discussion on the front end, which is great because it gets people thinking about smart building. And the difference is, you know, when we do a LEED project, it does require additional consultants. It does require commissioning at the back end of the project, which I've found to be a positive thing, but it is an additional cost. And you will chase a few points, depending on if you're going for silver, gold, platinum. You're going to chase some points that you may just think as a private developer you wouldn't want to spend that money. So, but overall, you know, I think as a whole, I think it's fine that it's big government or larger corporations that are, you know, the role makers chasing LEED, and then the smaller developers are going LEED intent. I mean, all in all, it's popularized LEED, which gets us all thinking about smart building, which is, I think, in my sight, that's the goal. And it educates our owners about smart building instead of cheap building. That said, so I'm going to talk about Routt Charter a little bit. So Routt Charter is about 14,000 square foot. Construction cost was about $200 a square foot, including the site. I think it's an example of an extremely affordable LEED project, and we did get LEED Platinum without doing anything lavish, but it did push Mike to do a lot of really nice things design-wise with everyday things like daylighting and steel and, you know, and product selection. So it got everybody just thinking harder about the project, which was great. The funding came from the state, and that required that we went after LEED. We did find, being up in the countryside, that, you know, LEED is really more focused for an urban setting. You pick up a lot of points for using mass transit, bicycles, electric cars, but we overcame that. But again, Mike found other creative points. I think we were a brownfield site and all sorts of things that we dug up to get the point. But there's so much stuff that we do every day in just good building, and I'm just going to list off a few. And actually, our building codes are requiring a lot of this for other adjacent agencies. So, like stormwater runoff, being just responsible about our construction site, making sure we're not sending mud into the rivers. Recycling programs. We didn't spend any more money doing recycling. In fact, I think we probably saved money doing it, and it's smart. Airing out or flushing the building at the end of the project to get rid of all the off-gassing. That didn't cost anything. Insulating well, which is something we're doing in Routt regardless. And the building codes are all pushing us to exterior insulations, continuous envelopes, which is absolutely the right way to go anyhow. Fresh air systems. All our buildings now have CO systems. We go to a lot of campuses now that have older buildings, and the owners have no idea that they heated commercial buildings with just electric baseboard heaters. And now, you know, we're bringing in fresh air systems and CO systems, and the air that we're breathing in these buildings is good. Daylighting, controls for our lighting systems to maximize daylighting. That's actually in the building code these days. Computerized mechanical controls. And when we're up here in Routt, that helps us in, say, Denver. They can go on and view our controls for troubleshooting, and we can maximize energy efficiency that way. White roofing to prevent heat gain in the surroundings. Vestibules, that's now in the energy code. So so much that we do for LEED is just in everyday building code right now. I'll give a con, one of these point chasing examples. You know, we use 1-pint flush valves in a school, which is just, we knew wasn't a great idea, but you kind of had to chase the point. I mean, for North Routt, we've got a well, we're bringing the water into the school, goes down the toilet, out the back into the ground. But you're forced to use a 1-pint flush. But there were very few cons. I mean, that's like one of them that I could think of, and that was about it. So, so a couple big home runs on North Routt. It inspired using a high-efficiency wood-fired boiler, which, you know, with so much beetle kill in the surroundings, essentially they've got free heat, which is phenomenal. I mean, everybody walks away from the project with a huge win, and LEED pushed us to uncover, you know, that option. And then the other thing, we walked through the school, you know, we had a local mill worker, Jim Vale, he built all the lockers out of beetle kill, which is, you know, visually stimulating. LEED kind of pushed us in that direction. So, turn it over to Mike here to talk about design.
Yeah, real quickly, the flush valves, we did need those because we didn't want to pay for a public water system because the state of Colorado has moved ever since that thing down in Alamosa where a bunch of people got sick. Now you have to do public water systems in any kind of public facility. And so we meticulously counted the exact gallons of water that we use, so we came in under the threshold required for a public water system. And it saved us $350 grand and about 6 months of design stall time waiting for a permit. So anyway, just a summary on the different, that's what I was asked to do, is give a summary on the different systems, green systems. And really they kind of break into big categories. One is kind of life cycle costs as far as the green category systems. The second would be kind of cumulative energy, like how much a building's really using. So there's a whole series of, you know, point systems out there that address that. And then there's what they call total quality assessment, as far as the whole building and the total quality of the environment of the building and what the building really does. And that's where LEED falls into that category. It's a total quality assessment system. So these are, and green globes is in the same category. So the green globes and LEED are kind of the two front runners that are out there. LEED is, I guess, as my understanding is getting to be pretty well known nationally. Jim hit the points exactly that, yes, it's a government, the cost of implementing it are so high that nobody in their right mind is going to spend, a private developer is not going to spend their money on it unless they're going to get something really, really positive back from it. However, there are those people out there who want for public image or for others' sake, they will do that, and that's great. Green globes is a little bit easier system point system to get that recognition for. LEED's a very documentation-heavy system. Green globes is more of a system analysis. They put their points more on total system integrations and how you kind of approach the project. LEED's more, you got to detail every little thing. In reality, you have to create a separate set of documents for LEED. You have a building set of documents, and you create a separate set of drawings that get submitted to LEED on each point that you're going after because the documentation is so intense. So, you know, if you're doing more than one LEED building, you can get some efficiencies out of that in a design office. But otherwise, it's just it's a big time absorber up front. Let's put it that way. Since we did the North Routt Charter School, LEED's come out with the latest version, which is the LEED 4. Really, the emphasis in LEED 4 seems to be more on this life cycle of a building. It's like once the building, you demolish the building, what happens to all those materials when they go back in the landfill? So they're starting to put emphasis on chemicals and things that are actually in the components of the building, which is great. In the whole thing, I think the great thing about LEED, and I think all governments should kind of enforce it, is it really pushes the whole sector, private industry, others, to get down the road to become familiar with these products and to change. Now low VOC products, and you go to the paint stores, the low VOC products are available. Before, you'd have to go research them and find them. Now it's kind of commonplace. And if you recall the first versions of LEED and what we did on the charter schools, you know, in the indoor air quality category, the low VOCs are kind of a standard thing, even all the way down to, you know, the materials that you put in your casework and things like that, looking for off-gassing things. Now they're taking it to a new level in this latest version of LEED, all the way down to kind of what the chemicals are and what's going to happen to them when you put them back in the landfill, which I think is a good thing. We start to think about, you know, we only live on the planet once, and, you know, we can't destroy it all at once. So, the other thing that LEED is doing in this version 4 is they're jumping on the commissioning, and they're carrying it a step further, and doing what you guys have all been talking about is air tightness and air quality, you know, of the building. And so they've kind of pushed that. They're pushing that in the latest version of LEED, which we didn't have to really address at the charter school. The other thing that we were able to do at the charter school, we got a lot of points for our energy efficiency and things like that. And now we were doing, I think, ASHRAE 2007, and now the latest version of LEED is doing ASHRAE 2010, which is a lot stricter in your. So when you're trying to beat those standards are so much higher. It's hard to get those energy efficient points. And that raises the whole thing about Jim was talking about public building. And I have an opposite viewpoint. I think we're putting too much fresh air in these buildings because you have to heat the darn air before you bring it in, because you have to bring in, and you can't, in our climate, it's impossible to heat it because you have to preheat it because it's too cold even for the HVAC unit to use it. And then everybody wants a double system because, you know, it's more efficient to throw in floor heat in the building and then have this to supply your fresh air, which is what we did at the charter school. That was one of our techniques. But it becomes a controls nightmare because you can't control the two, and the controls are fighting each other. And up in our climate, it's very difficult in the size of buildings that we do to have building managers to kind of work on such small-scale buildings because you don't have a building manager. It's some guy you have to call in from somewhere else. So it becomes very complicated to do those kinds of things up in our environment in such a small town. Let's see. I think I covered it all. The last thing I was going to touch on was net zero buildings. Those, again, I was reading about this last night. There's 160 net zero buildings in the country, which is, I think, pretty impressive. But is reading about those, and a comment that Tyler just made when I was sitting next to him, he made this comment that the most space heaters are sold in the middle of summer because everyone has air conditionings on. The men are wearing coats and ties, so they're hot. Women are wearing skirts, and they're the ones buying these units. So, and as I was reading about these, you know, the net zero energy buildings, and in any building, it's really about assessing cultural behavior and modifying our behavior to kind of get it to conform to how the building is going to be used and how to maximize that energy used in the building. And really, you know, we can make so many gains with just this insulation and surface things, but all the rest of this, unless you reevaluate exactly how we use the building culturally and our cultural norms and what our expectations are, I don't think, you know, you can only go so far, and that's how you're going to get the biggest energy efficiency gains out of anything. So I'll just leave it at that, if there's any questions.
Perhaps you guys want to come up, and if you have any questions.